It's fun to stay at the. We know you sang it.
You all said it. Y'all said it.
You thought it. And for copyright reasons, we cannot post the song. But you guys know what we're talking about. There's a lot of executive orders that President Trump has signed. The EOs are coming in so fast like Eeyore. And no one is sad like Eeyore. A lot of folks are happy, but many of them are throwing a lot of conspiracies about what's happening. Some good, maybe some not so good, but we'll talk about them today. Find out all this and more on Self-Evident Podcast. Yeah, we'll come in slow like Eeyore. Forgive me, not fast like Eeyore. Lest someone says, Eeyore wasn't fast. You can't believe what they say. Anyways, welcome. You guys
have never seen it.
Yeah, I
never
can't
seen
believe.
Winnie the Pooh in life.
Yeah, you don't even realize what you're saying. You guys are so dumb. You don't know what you're talking about. I love all of our comments on YouTube, by the way. They're like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what history says. And I'm like, 8 years. You're right. I'm turning now because you said that to me. Thank you.
And it's never followed by how you don't know what you're talking about. You just don't know what you're talking about. Please,
so lovely. So lovely. Anywho's, welcome to Self-Evident Podcast. You got Massey, you got Mike. We're back in the studio. And we got a great show today. I think when we talked about what we should talk about with this specific thing is what are some of these executive orders that are happening? We were told there was going to be 200. I don't think there's been 200 though.
Not yet.
Right. So there's a lot of stuff going on. We want to explain some of these. What is good? What's maybe not so good about some of these? But you know what? I got to give it to him. President Trump is reducing the size of government. So, guys, if you've not checked out the website, theselfevidenttruth.com, you guys can do that. We are bringing the gospel to the nation. We're bringing the gospel, true history to the country and giving souls the salvation message of Jesus. However, there's also civility, civics, how to be a disciple, all those things, government, history, politics, satire. We cover it all here, and that's frankly where the ministry is going more and more and more. So we love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get into this. Mike and I were talking the last couple days. He doesn't remember this conversation. However, I do because I'm a good Christian.
In my defense, there are plenty of conversations where we talk about like, oh, we should cover this. Oh, we should cover that. We should cover this. So there's usually like 3 or 4 topics that we could cover.
Anyways,
defense.
Mike forgot. So
you see, it's like I'll throw him under the bus,
and then really
I'll back the bus up and run him over.
Yeah. No, seriously, we there's been a lot of questions and a lot of false information too about what some of these executive orders are saying and is he upending and is he going to quit? Interracial marriages can no longer exist now, like all that crazy talk. We'll talk about it today. And you know what? Again, I find it so funny that the ones who talk about misinformation and we should dial it down and conspiracy theories are the ones that have come up with the most conspiratorial things over the last few days, right? Especially since the inauguration. And so today's the 24th. It's a good day.
Hey, everybody wish him a happy birthday on all the social medias. Happy birthday, Mass.
I wasn't going to say nothing.
But he kind of leaned you into it.
But I did.
He set it up for success.
Right. Well, I will say, too, I was reading a couple articles. Trump has signed more his first and second day executive orders than any president in history. I'm not saying he'll sign the most out of any, but over the first 2 days, he's signed more executive orders than any president so far. Since we've been recording it in 1945 or 43, I believe it was, since they actually started recording how many executive orders have been signed. So again, that's a little problematic for us. I think as constitutionalists, we did not again elect a king. We elected a president. However, the only way executive orders can really work, if you understand the executive order, is it's him upholding the law towards the federal government. In other words, if an executive order was written against the American people, null and void. However, when it comes to the government, when it comes to his cabinet, when it's getting government out of certain things, that is very important. And we need to talk about that.
These executive orders, what they should be, and it seems to be, for the most part, there's some areas where it's kind of like,
they're flirting.
Yeah, but for the most part, it is him telling the departments under his control, in the executive branch how to do their job.
Right.
And that's really what an executive order is supposed to be. It's kind of like when your manager comes to you and tells you, okay, I need you to do this project this way and this way and this way. Don't worry about this thing. That's really what should be going on with executive orders. There's a couple of them where we're not the biggest fans of, and we understand the conservative position behind it, but the question becomes, is that actually constitutional? Is that an authority that should be in Congress still? Perfect example, and this just gives you an idea of kind of where your head should be at. He wrote an executive order that is determining that South American gangs and the cartels should be designated as terrorists. Now, he doesn't designate them as terrorists. It's actually the authority of the Secretary of State, which was part of a law that was passed, an act in 1996. The question is, should the executive branch have the labeling authority of determining who is or is not a terrorist organization? And one of my concerns about that is it's basically telling Congress who our enemies are going to be. And personally, I believe since Congress is the one who can declare war, they should be the ones who are declaring who are our enemies, who are against us on the international stage. This consolidates that power into the hands of the president because the president is telling the Secretary of State what to do. That's just an example of where you go, man, I don't know. And Congress passed that act in 1996. They were giving up some of their authority.
Yeah.
And that's a really frustrating part and something that the Supreme Court has dealt with a little bit of, should Congress be able to give up their authority to bureaucracies, three-letter agencies, which guess what? Those three-letter agencies are under the purview of the executive branch. So they're basically giving authority over to the executive branch and saying, you deal with it, you can determine.
Yeah.
Well, then all of a sudden, that becomes force of the land, which then like EPA regulations, guess what? They can punish you. SEC regulations, they can punish you, which means their regulations are tantamount to law. That's where you got to be careful with these EOs because people may say, well, this Trump EO, it's great. But is he exercising an authority that was not constitutionally given to him? So that's my primer.
I agree with everything Mike just said. And it is a challenge that should, and it's not even a challenge to me. The bottom line is the Constitution was written with three branches of government, giving the sole authority and power to the Congress, House and Senate to pass laws because they represent the people, right? Not the president because the president can't do it all. They didn't want a monarchy. Same thing with an oligarchy. We didn't want originally 5, but now 9 justices running the nation and creating laws. That's an oligarchy. We did not want that. We wanted to check on all 3 branches. So for the Congress to abdicate any kind of authority in the hands of another throws a whole American system off.
And people will typically argue, yeah, but Congress doesn't get anything done. Good.
Yeah, that's actually not bad.
I would much rather Congress have a very difficult time getting laws passed than them being able to run roughshod over the American people because all of a sudden you get a couple hundred people. I know it's more than a couple hundred, but I'm just rounding out, okay?
Yeah.
You get this group of people who can all of a sudden change massive areas of a person's life. I would much rather them have a very hard time to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think what they do is, well, we need someone to execute that law, so we'll just create a whole new agency for it. And it's like, were you meant to pass laws like that, where things are, you know what I mean? Like,
was that the purview?
Was that the purview of government? Yeah, to be in every aspect of your life and business. You know, so there's a lot to cover here, and really go through the lens of if President Trump is reducing the size and scope of government and holding them restrained, perfect. If not, and it goes against the will of the American people and the rights of the people, that's where you should start flagging and saying, okay, red flag, right? So we're going to go through these one by one, okay? Well, it's best I can. just several. I don't know how many we're going to blow through, but you want to pick?
I would suggest the ones that I bolded.
Yeah, let's do it.
Those were the ones that I went through, and I was like, we should talk about that.
Right. Obviously, you guys know about the border. that is a no-brainer. Protecting our border is so important. That is a national security issue. Anyone who supports an open border is a traitor to America. I believe it's complete treason against the American people to open a border to anybody. That's ridiculous. That's just stupid. That's not even. There's no Christianity involved in that. That is not about being a Christian. That's about being smart, right? Just like we won't in our churches allow men in women's bathrooms if you're a true church and preaching the gospel. It's the same here. It's the same violation. Look, we don't know who you are. What are you going to do in our cities and towns? We don't know you, right? And again, we have a ton of people who are born in this country who do the same thing. I completely agree. But here we have the chance to reform them. We're already so lapped in resources that we're allowing so many more people in that are taking up those resources. So what do we do with the kids that are in inner cities? Or what do we do with the kids in high suburban areas who are selling drugs? What do we do, right? Because we're taking all of our resources to help people who are illegal immigrants. Let's just be honest here. So there's a whole lot of mess with that. So you guys kind of know about that stuff. Now, here's one that's really good. Redefine, this is one he signed. Redefine, this is what they say he's doing. Redefine birthright citizenship. He's not redefining it. We'll explain in a minute. Under the 14th Amendment, a Trump order asserts that a child born in the U.S. is not a citizen. Number one, if the mother does not have legal immigration status or the country or is in the country legally, but only temporary, and the father is not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. The order forbids U.S. agencies from issuing any documentation recognizing such a child as a citizen or accept any state document recognizing citizenship. This order is already being challenged in federal court. Of course it is. Now, let me explain. We'll go through it constitutionally, okay? Number one, the 14th Amendment is very clear. It argues this: all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction. That means you already have to be subjected to the jurisdiction of it, not coming in outside. It says this: are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and are subject to the jurisdiction, which means you've been a citizen already. You've been under the jurisdiction of the state that you're in, the country that you're in, all those other things. Nowhere does it say any person can come and be born and be a citizen. So let's talk about it. The phrase subject jurisdiction thereof is really the pinpoint of the whole issue. That's really the pinpoint of the whole issue. And we're going to explain. And U.S. Senator Jacob Howard, this is actually, I'm getting this article from, it's the New American, and his name's Dr. Joe Wolverton. We've had him on our show. He wrote this whole thing, Trump Ends Birthright Citizenship. What he's ending is the illegally used verbiage that has been plaguing this nation for years, right? Because this is what happened. And U.S. Senator Jacob Howard of Michigan introduced the Citizenship Clause in 1866 as what? As a reason to initiate slaves to be, you guys can be citizens or go back to the nation that you were taken from.
It was there to protect slaves from being cut out from being considered citizens.
Right. Because
that's what it was there
They were
for.
considered already second class. This gave them the opportunity. If you're naturalized or born here, you have the opportunity to be a citizen. If you were taken from another country, you want to go back, go back. This is your way to do it. It's your entry. And they had every right to do that.
Yeah. Again, and those two differentiations are important because some slaves were born, some slaves were carried on ships over here, so they weren't born here. That's why they use that term naturalized. Okay, you've been here, you've been part of the process. We need to try and include both types of people. It really was focused on slaves. It was not focused on Mexicans coming across the border or Venezuelans coming across the border. That's not what it was.
Or Muslim immigrants or Chinese immigrants, whatever you want to, whatever immigrant you want to say who is doing this illegally was not meant to produce anchor babies. And people don't want to say that word anymore. I'm going to say it. They're anchor babies. They create babies to become citizens. They jumped the line because they came illegally and had a baby. There's something fundamentally wrong about that. It's just like me working over at, let's say I work at Best Buy, and because I have a child, now my child has a right to work here. No matter how slovenly and how stupid he is, he has a right to work here, which he does if they want to hire him. But if he's unqualified, right, they have the right to choose. But then you turn around and sue them because they didn't hire your son, even though you worked there because he was born while you were. It's so stupid. This whole argument's stupid. So, U.S. Senator Jacob Howard introduces this in 1866. Listen to his explanation on how it should be interpreted. This is what he said: "This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, or who belong to families of ambassadors or foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States, but will include every other class of persons. Even people who are ambassadors here and have children here are not considered citizens because the ambassadors that come here are citizens of another nation. They don't even give them U.S. citizenship status. Does that make sense? So already we're seeing here, and I want to read this line. It was so good. It was so good what he wrote in here. And there's actually a court case that they used to try to justify birthright citizenship, but it's actually misinterpreted. In 1898, a Supreme Court case, United States versus Wong Kim Ark, is often cited as establishing birthright citizenship. However, this case is frequently misunderstood. Wong Kim Ark was born in the United States to Chinese parents who were lawful permanent residents. They weren't illegal immigrants. They were permanent residents. My mom actually has a resident alien card from the 80s in my dad's desk. She was a permanent resident. She filed for it, considered a better green card, I guess, at the time, on her pathway to citizenship. She had been here for years. Her babies weren't born illegally. My dad been a citizen here for quite a long time. Resident aliens, we're considered citizens because of their residency, because they were here resident aliens, right? So the court held that it was a U.S. citizens based on the 14th Amendment. Crucially, Wong Kim Ark's parents were not illegal immigrants, nor were they merely temporary visitors. So it's an oftenly misused, misquoted thing. And there's a line in here that's so good, and I want to find it. Where is it? Oh, I read it to you this morning, Mike. Oh, I posted it. Here it is.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, I posted it. He wrote, granting automatic citizenship to the children of individuals unlawfully present undermines the principle of the consent of the government found in the Declaration of Independence. They derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. If they're illegal, are they being governed by our nation?
Actually, they are in fact not being governed.
That's right.
Because they broke the law as soon as they stepped over.
Bingo.
They are not part of the governed, yet they are determining that they can be a part of the
100%,
consent process.
100%. So yeah, just so you know, it is not a misinterpretation or a rewriting or redefining of birthright citizenship. Birthright citizenship should have never existed. That is not what this was talking about. It was talking about those who have been permanent residents or slaves at the time. And context is key in everything. Context is key in everything. And we need to get that right. So kudos to President Trump.
Yep.
We give you a high five on that one.
There was a lot of repeals as well. Going down to page 2, I'll go to the bold. There were a lot of repeals of Biden stuff. There was repeals of some of Biden's stuff in controlling, say, drug prices, which should the government be involved in the private economy and determining whether or not a drug company can set a certain price, that kind of thing. Now, I know it gets into Medicare, Medicaid, and all of that, but you're going to find a lot of limited government, free market people not real thrilled about that anyways. But there was something that I thought was interesting, and I don't know that I know how I feel about it, and Mass, I'm interested in your thoughts too. It's going to direct the Attorney General and others to deny federal money to so-called sanctuary cities the administration sees as interfering with federal immigration enforcement, with the caveat that the Trump administration pursues action to the maximum extent possible under law. Now, here's my question. Congress has the power of the purse. What makes me a little bit nervous... Now, I don't disagree with the fact that sanctuary cities are going against federal law.
It's illegal.
It's illegal.
And I would dare say the leaders of those states and cities that are doing that are treasonous to the federal government. To the Constitution.
Right. My struggle is how often government takes the money from you and then threatens you with it.
Yeah, holds it over your head. See, that's what I'm talking about. I think this is where things can get really hairy, because now that you've said we're going to designate that and you're already crossing lines that way, can government in the future do this to other things? Hey, we're going to withhold you school money if you don't start teaching what we want to teach in the Department of Education. So that's where it gets really scary. And again, this is where, should the states have ever accepted federal aid? constitutionally. So there's so much history and context we don't see. We're just looking at what this is today. And the main argument is what we're doing today is we're not even focusing on what the original intent of this all was. That's why you see so much division.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I agree with you. It's a tough one.
And very along this line, the next one down, pause distribution of federal money to non-governmental organizations supporting or providing services either directly or indirectly to removable or illegal aliens. Again, who has the power of the purse in the distribution of money?
That's the House, yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't agree with the thought. Like, I get it. Like, no, we don't want these NGOs that are helping move illegals across the border.
Right.
But is that Trump's purview? Is that his authority
100%.
to do? Or is that Congress's deal and issue that they need to take care of and determine where is this money going, and we need to pull back the strings
I
of the
think
purse.
this is the flip side, though. If Congress won't do it, his job as the executive is to uphold the law. The problem is, what law is he upholding in this one, right?
Exactly.
And
distribution of money.
You're not saying it's illegal to have people to have these NGOs have illegal. Right. You're saying we're going to pause your money because a threat instead of a law, or instead of upholding the law. Does that make sense?
Exactly. And that's if the and I get it, because you could argue those NGOs, well, they're breaking the law, so therefore they shouldn't get funding. But is that funding, is that a determination that was made in the law originally, where the law said, if the NGO that this money is going to breaks the law of the United States, then it is the responsibility of the executive branch in executing the law to withdraw that money or to punish that NGO by taking the money.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So a better course of action on this would be, we need to shut down government organizations, which that's scary too, or designate them as illegal organizations. You know what I mean? That they're prosecutable
and I
for destroying the Constitution.
I think that becomes an act of Congress, right? Just like the whole terrorist organization thing, I think it becomes an act of Congress saying this organization is acting illegally. They will not get funding from us. You know, I don't know.
And the fact that government funds things is funny to me.
So
it's unconstitutional.
Scary, isn't it? And that's why I highlighted these things, is because we don't typically think about this. We just go, oh yeah, he's pulling money from NGOs. Is that his responsibility? Is that his role in his branch to determine who gets funding and who doesn't? Because it very quickly can become ideological, just like we saw with the Biden administration of, well, you're going to win, you're not. We like you, we don't like you. You're going to get this, you're not going to get this. And we sit back there and we look at this and we go, government is picking winners and losers because all of a sudden government has an ideology. Government shouldn't have an ideology. Government should operate the affairs of the government, day-to-day affairs, and uphold the law. That's really, at the end of the day, what government should be doing in their course of action, and how quickly we decide government has to have a philosophy. So then government writes an EO that, oh, you should fly rainbow flags underneath the American flag at embassies. And I'm glad Trump banned that type of practice, because government should not be enforcing an ideology. They should not be promoting
100%. 100%. And this is what I've told leaders in governments, in state governments, city governments. You don't have the purview, the authority, the scope to promote ideologies. You don't. Your job is to uphold the law. If people are being so-called discriminated against where they can't work or they're being maimed, yeah, go uphold the law. That's stupid. But when it's just my feelings were hurt and we need to open up bathrooms for people who think they're girls, no, you're actually aiding in their psychoness, this psychosis, if you will. It really is. It's a question of what's a mental disorder and what's not. It just truly is. And so that's not your job, is to uphold and make some month a month for your city. That's not what this is about. That's ideology stuff. There's no, we have one day where we honor the nation that was formed here, where we thought, man, people fought, bled, and died for the country and liberty and freedom. We spend a whole month talking about someone who sleeps with the same sex and someone who thinks when they were born a girl, they're a boy now. Think about that. That's not your job. Your job is not to make sure their hands are held. That's not the job of government. No, nowhere will you find that constitutionally. So no, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Get government out of that stupid mess.
So then,
Way to go, buddy.
You and I had talked about earlier designating international cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
That one kind of bothers me too.
Yeah,
It does, because when you say we're labeling foreign terrorist organizations, all that does is say we have emergency power. Bam, here comes government. That's what's going to happen. This is where it gets a little hairy for me, okay? I get it. They're bad people, no question. Are they in our nation? If they're breaking the law, arrest them or prosecute them.
And if it's foreign terrorist organizations or specifically designated global terrorists, you know what I hear? War.
Here comes that war machine, baby. Ramping it up.
They're an enemy. War on terror.
Yep.
Boy, that's funny. Congress didn't seem to have declared that, but now we can label who we're going to bomb next because, oh, well, the president signed an EO.
They are terrorists. And guess what? Why? First off, cartels. Where are the main cartels at? Mexico. We're picking fights here, boys and girls. That's the kind of stuff we're saying. That's hairy. That's scary.
Yep.
You should look at this with a different lens. The moment they say foreign terrorist organizations and it will enact the Alien Enemies Act, oh boy, you know what that means? More government power. It means emergency acts. It means I don't need Congress to do anything. I can do it myself. That is dangerous. Again, that goes back to a monarchy, and that's not what we want. So please don't just blindly follow a lot of these. Ask questions. Get your congressman involved. I'm surprised Congress hasn't come out about that and said they can't do anything without us anyway.
I think what scares me is Congress has shaped and shifted to, hey, what he says, man, we're behind it because he's popular. People like him. And you probably have a lot of Republicans in Congress that are like, they like him, so whatever, do what you got to do. There's a bunch of trade stuff. If you go to page 3, this one caught me as well, and I'm can't wait to hear you talk about it too.
Let's do it.
Pause the U.S. ban on TikTok for 75 days, specifically barring the Attorney General from enforcing the law Congress passed in 2024 to allow the new administration to assess national security concerns and seek a potential American buyer for the popular digital platform. The TikTok stuff.
There's a couple questions you can ask about this, right? One, can a federal government ban a platform that is a business? Now, again, you know why they did it? It's a national security threat because China will have all of your information. Who is considered basically they're not an ally, they're an enemy.
Yeah,
my assumption.
Yeah,
it's not said, but it's kind of said.
I don't know where they are designated on that list. But.
So it's a national security issue. So then they said we need to ban TikTok. Okay. To my retort, the federal government has all my information too, and they're just as tyrannical as a Chinese government. So can we ban the federal government?
Please?
Seriously. So one, but two, this is where it gets scary. Can the president pause a law?
Thank you.
That's scary.
That's what
whether you agree with the law or not, does he have the authority to do that?
That's what really caught me on that is, okay, so you have a law and you may disagree with it. You may think it's a bad law. So are we doubling down?
Yeah.
Right. Why not repeal it? Why are we doubling down on
defiance?
Just don't follow that. Because y'all got mad when Obama was pulling that. Say, we're just not going to follow that law. We're not going to enforce that one.
Yeah.
And then you get President Biden, who did the same. Yeah, we're not going to enforce that one, but that one we're going to start enforcing.
Yeah.
And Trump's doing the same thing. And we get so used to it. We're like, I hope our guy picks the laws to not enforce that I don't like.
Right. And you know what really happens? It's emotional driven. Mm-hmm. Everybody that has a small business on TikTok is supporting what Trump just did because it affected them. Does this make sense? So it becomes an emotional argument, not a principled one. And so the question should be: Can the U.S. ban a company like that because they feel like it? No, there are many other national security risks to me. You'll ban TikTok, but not close the border. That is Class A hypocrisy. The government saw TikTok was a way for many conservatives to get their voice out. To me, I think it was to shut that down, shut down voices. Many of these small business owners, and there were many,
a lot,
not that aren't Christian or liberal, whatever. But it's a way to make money. And yet, guess what? Conservatives That's their main line is let me keep my money and keep my stuff.
It's
You know,
more so a marketplace. Than
it totally
it's really
is.
just
It actually is.
platform.
You're more. Yeah, you're right about that. It's
Which-
actually there's so much money going through it. Instagram too, YouTube,
Yeah,
Facebook.
yeah. They're all a marketplace at this point.
No one has said to ban YouTube for censoring videos about COVID, which to me is
good
more
point.
national security than they've somehow collected all of our information at Google. Why wasn't Google banned itself as an entity? And they admitted to it.
Yeah.
Facebook just came out and apologized. Meta came out, Zuckerberg. Yeah, it's because the government was forcing me to do it. We should ban it, dude. Like, ban Facebook. Why not?
Yeah.
National security, bro.
And I understand if you want to go to government officials and say you cannot have these apps on your government official phone, or maybe even, hey, you're working for us, you're not allowed to download these apps because of national security concern. I get that. I understand that. And somebody had actually texted me about the TikTok ban, and that was one of the things I said is like, it always makes my skin crawl when we talk about national security concerns. And
just increases government.
National energy emergency. So now all of a sudden energy is an emergency. And what do you hear?
Yeah. Emergency equates power. Government.
Power. For the government.
Emergency creates a way for us not to run the proper channels and have one man run the show.
Yep.
That's what happens in the state. Any state that declares an emergency. It's kind of scary, but in Florida, literally, emergency powers means power. They can do anything. Carte blanche almost anything in Florida when they declare an emergency. Thank God for moral leaders who won't abuse the power, but it's there. And the question should be, does Congress have the authority to even abdicate their own responsibility through an Emergency Powers Act? I mean, that's a big question we should be asking.
That's a very important question. And I think if you really sat down and thought about it, I don't think Congress should be able to abdicate their power or their authority, especially because that sits permanently. It's not just Congress going, so for the next 6 months, we are giving up our authority. It's giving up the authority that everybody in Congress from here on out for the future can have. That's a lot of power in its own right that I don't think you should be able to have. And this National Emergencies Act, or any National Emergency Act,
or statewide emergency act.
Look at what happened in Michigan. Whitmer went the freaking tyrant.
Oh, she went
route.
ham, dude.
She went insane, and everybody was going, no. The act ends. She goes, that's fine. I'll reinstitute it.
I'll redo it again.
Yeah, I'll just keep reinstituting this thing. Do you see the power you gave somebody who is maniacal and insane? Golf clap.
Yeah,
you
way
just
to go.
burned yourself.
Yep. And this is where it gets funny is you have all these conservatives up there. Are they really fighting on the behalf of the people in Michigan? I didn't really see a lot of you didn't see anything come out of Michigan that was of the contrary, except for Justin Amash and a few. I'm not saying all of them bowed down. However, just the emergency power stuff or terrorist organization just means more power, more war. More of this, and it could lead to that is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it will. I'm saying it could lead to that.
And on this declares national energy emergency. Now, this is from the AP, so take it all with a grain of salt, okay? Take it with a grain of salt. But they say this is both a symbolic measure reflecting Trump's promise of energy expansion, but also specifically urges federal use of eminent domain and the Defense Production Act, measures that allow the government to commandeer private land and resources to produce goods deemed to be a national necessity. Now, AP's doing a little bit of fear-mongering.
Just a tad.
Eminent domain, they're going to take your land.
Yeah, but they won't write about that in California in the Palisades. I'm sorry. Was I supposed to say that? I said it.
But eminent domain is one of those things where it's a
little scary.
And I get it. It's in the Constitution. It's in one of the amendments. I understand eminent domain is a real factor, but makes you skin crawl.
It does.
When government can say, I want that.
Yeah, every time President Trump or President Biden or any other president says emergency, like the border, it's an emergency, removes all authority from Congress. Now one person can do it. Same thing with this. We're declaring it an emergency. Who checks those emergency declarations, by the way, I wonder?
Dude, there's probably so many in in place right now.
Right. So like who's really doing that? So I mean, I'm not against drill, baby, drill. I think that's important. We need the jobs. We need the economy to spark again. Let's get some cheaper fuel. Create a better energy source. Invest in nuclear. Invest in things that are going to work, right? But don't force Toyota to not make V8s anymore, because that's what we're seeing now. Do you see this now in 2023? So many recalls on their V6 engines now with the hybrid systems and just the V6 motors alone. So many in Toyota. Now they're almost doing it in 24. So 22 and 23 have it. Our buddy owns a 24 Tundra. It's a V6 mixed with the hybrid motor, which was kind of a neat idea, right? But oh my gosh, the recalls, right? It's like, just stick with the what do you have in yours?
V8 5.7.
Yeah, stick with the 5.7 V8. Boy, you can't go wrong with that Tundra.
That thing, I love it. And all I'm gonna say is I love it. It's great. And to your point, Mass, it says one of the things that I think he did well, that this was good, eliminate Biden policies intended to encourage electrical vehicle development and purchases, part of Trump's effort to limit non-fossil fuel energy sectors. Mind you, what they don't tell you is part of that whole thing was ending this whole policy of half the cars should be electrical by 2035 or whatever it was. Let the market handle itself. And you saw California finally rescinded their whole thing of all trucks should be electric by 2030. And everybody's going, you don't have the technology to do that. Yeah, well, the market better figure it out. How insulting. And so I don't mind where the Trump administration is going to try and claw back some of the Biden administration's attempts to control the market and regulate the market and push and force the market to do things that the market's not ready to do. The market can figure itself out. It is amazing at how it can figure itself out.
100%. Again, we have to be careful. We're not nitpicking. I'm not trying to nitpick Trump or anything like that. What we're saying is just take everything with, is it expanding government authority or lessening government authority? You decide. That's what we're trying to do here.
Here's another one that the environmentalists will hate, but I don't mind. Streamline other fossil fuel extraction in Alaska with a command to rescind, revoke, revise, amend, defer, or grant exemptions from any and all regulatory actions relevant in the state. Specifically, Trump is restoring any suspended fossil fuel leases within the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Drill, baby, drill.
That's right, dude. Listen, we think there's a shortage of land out there. Alaska's plumb full. Dude. It's like, listen, they should pay a penalty if they destroy pieces of the land with oil spills. That goes with anything. If you destroy something, you repay it. That's biblical, okay? We're doing all this. We got to protect the fish. Like, again, why doesn't California have water? Because we had to protect some kind of koi that
Yeah.
So we had to redirect the water out of California into the ocean. Like, smart move.
The tens of thousands of animals that have died in the fires are so glad those freaking fish can swim themselves around a river a little bit longer. Good for you, California. Thought that one through. So many words I want to say that I can't.
It's just the pungent effort of you thought that one through was so good. I just felt the love of Jesus in it. That was so nice.
Jesus called Herod a fox, and I'm willing to say.
And many foxes have died probably in California from all the wildfires.
Good on you, Newsom.
Yeah.
You're doing grand.
Yeah, Jesus didn't say, you coy. Anywho's, the streamlined fossil fuels.
Yep.
We like it. Restore first Trump administration rules on hunting and trapping in national preserves in Alaska. Okay. Yeah, that's freedom.
Order Interior Department to align federal rules on hunting and fishing in Alaska with rules for state government lands. Good for you.
Yeah.
Hey, what the state says, just align with that.
Imagine the economy of having people go up there, like doing it responsibly. Dude. Imagine the economy you're bringing up there.
Dude, there are no better conservationists than hunters. Hunters care more about the animals than you do.
That's right.
And you may know that, George. Yeah. You get that one guy on TikTok that is like poaching and trying to kill everything that
poachers moves. Are wrong, but those real animal like lovers do it for survival and food and warmth, and they know that because they have to do it again next year.
And that's exactly
and the year after.
That's exactly right. The hunter cares more about sustaining the animals because guess what? They want to come back around and hunt
100.
for years. If all the animals are dead, well, you lose the beauty of that animal.
Right.
And so I'm good. Glad.
I like it.
Roll back other Biden-era limits or regulations on fossil fuel extraction.
He
on
really
federal
got on
lands.
that one,
Just
boy.
keep nailing
Jeepers.
it.
Re-engage a legal and regulatory battle with California state government over water routes from Sacramento, San Joaquin Delta. Trump wants to override fish and wildlife protection efforts to route more water to the central. That's just common sense. A lot of these are common sense.
Right.
Right. Go ahead.
Here's my thought on this.
By the way, when we do these shows, we don't talk a lot beforehand about what we're. So this is fresh. We're just kind of ping ponging off each other.
Here's my thought on this one, and if somebody can give me a very reasonable, coherent argument, I will accept it. My question on this is: should the federal government be telling California what to do with their water sources?
Okay, I don't know about that, but there is. Here's where it gets hairy. Because Article 1 talks about in the Constitution, federal Constitution, each state shall be guaranteed a Republican form of government, a representative form of government. What happens when your state is just overriding and not hearing the people? How do you protect that? What do you do with that? Right? This is what I'm saying.
That's a really solid argument because. Well, it gets into a larger debate of was the Constitution written to protect state sovereignty or individual sovereignty?
Yes. Right? So, and I think you're right about that too, because the states, if they want to drive themselves into oblivion, that's on them, kind of thing. I agree. However, this is where the federal funds come in. You don't want us to be involved in how you get water to you, but you want the billions of dollars to help rebuild when something goes down.
Absolutely. Good point.
So there's where the state and federal get involved. That's where it gets hairy again. So again, this is a good debate.
And I'm not making a conclusion, guys. I want you to make a conclusion. It was just a thought of should the federal government make a precedent of telling states what to do or not do with their natural resources? Where does that line get drawn of nope, we're going to tell you what to do because that's in national interest? I don't know. And there's part of me that's like, California, you got to get your crap together. Federal government shouldn't be trying to fix it for you. Down to page 5. Forbid federal money. Again, forbidding federal money, including grants, from being used to promote gender ideology and direct the Attorney General and Homeland Security Secretary to ensure that males are not detained in women's prisons or housed in women's detention centers. It's messy.
It's a messy one. However, if they're federal penitentiaries, they're federally funded.
Exactly.
You got to give them that because I think that's what he's saying here. Not
the question is the whole federal money promoting gender ideology. Well, guess what? The government shouldn't be involved in promoting an ideology anyways.
Right.
But is that a congressional act?
Is it a congressional act? But again,
I don't know.
Gosh, this is so difficult because if you're upholding the law, it would have been better to write it as we have no business promoting ideologies, and nor do jails have the right to force women to be with men. They don't. They don't have the right to do that. So, I mean, that would have been worded a little different. I know again, we're dealing with a modern day kind of thinking process as well. Let's see, federal workers and government structure. That's a whole new thing.
Withdraw from the WHO.
Where's that?
Bottom of page 5, or like 3 or 4 up. Withdraw the U.S. from the World Health Organization. Direct the White House Office of Management and Budget to stop future transfers of U.S. money to WHO and order the Secretary of State to end negotiations on the WHO pandemic agreement. Now, Massey, I want you to tell the people why constitutionally you support this.
I do. Constitutionally is because we are not to enter into foreign treaties or things that are going against the Constitution of the United States. There's no legal precedent for it, no legal document for it. If we're entering into treaties and alliances that are destroying our laws, and that is not legal. It's not permitted. As a matter of fact, those who got us into those things are treasonous against your federal government. We don't like using the word treason. We don't like using the word illegal. We don't like using the word anchor babies. And we've got to start reinstituting these words. You know why? Because it holds weight. You know why you don't like it? Because it brings conviction. That's the point.
That's good.
So when we're saying they're treasonous, they are treasonous. And anybody who aided in it is treasonous, because we are a sovereign, independent nation, not dependent on any other nation. Okay, so we're called to do that. And so as American, he's got the right to say America, our nation as a whole, as a federal government, will not be in the WHO. He's exactly right. Nailed it.
Cool.
Nailed it.
We're happy.
And you know what? Congress should follow suit and say we shall not enter into treaties in the future that destroy our U.S. Constitution.
Right. Love it. Cancel Biden-era sanctions on far-right Israeli groups and individuals accused of violence against Palestinians in the West Bank. Biden's order had frozen U.S. assets and barred Americans from dealing with Israelis covered by his order. Again, this whole designation thing. I don't like a single person having the authority and ability to determine who is going to be sanctioned or controlled by the U.S. and who you can do business with or who you can't do business with. It just doesn't feel right to me if we're going to look at this as, is it constitutional or not? And so it's more a Trump canceling these Biden-era sanctions. I'm not going to complain. Even if I have a disagreement with a group, I feel that should probably be a Congress thing. Page 6, pause all U.S. foreign development aid pending reviews of efficiencies and consistencies with administration aims to be conducted within 90 days by relevant agency heads under guidelines from Rubio, White House Office of Management and Budget.
That's the new WHO.
Rubio, yeah, right?
WHO, White House Office of Management.
Rubio can lift the freeze for any program.
U.S. foreign development and pending reviews. Pause all U.S. foreign development. In other words, is that sending money to Ukraine and crap? Is that kind of?
I believe
okay.
So. Yeah.
I didn't understand that one, but
last page.
Oh,
this one's good. I'm yes, by all means. I'm going to just read through all of
you
these.
do it. You do it. I'm just going to follow with you.
Commute the sentences and grant full pardons to hundreds of individuals convicted or still being prosecuted for their roles in the January 6, 2021 attacks on the U.S. Capitol as Congress convened to certify Biden's victory over Trump in the 2020 elections.
Mike? I'll tell you why. Because many of them, if they did storm the Capitol, which many of them actually didn't, and a lot of them that were haven't even been prosecuted, and those that were, 3 years is a pretty long time to be without trial. It's a pretty long time. So it's obvious they were political prisoners, just like Joey Lynn Massaros, our dear friend in Texas, who was tried under the old KKK law of the 1800s. And just won that case and has now turned around, said yesterday they're suing those who came after them. Way to go, kiddo.
Good.
Look her up, Joey Lynn Massaros. They're from Texas. Great people. But just like this whole coming after those, and they talk about the political opposition, so, coming after their political opposition. That's exactly what they did to these people. Obviously, Jan 6, and they call it the most dark day in American history. You obviously have never read a history book because slavery wasn't the dark days of American history. So it's just ridiculous. It's all hype. But I will say,
yep,
way to go.
Kudos.
Oh, did you put in here the pardon of the abortion people? The pro-life people?
I don't know if they covered that.
Yeah,
go ahead and talk about it.
He did pardon those who were prisoned or put in prison who protested pro-abortion, pro-death facilities. And again, each story is debatable. We covered one specifically a couple months ago on the validity of why she was arrested. But still, it's a peaceful protest in front of a place and you get arrested for it. Come on, dude. So he's got the right to do it. Again,
good. All right. Order the Attorney General and others to review all agencies' investigative and enforcement actions during Biden's tenure to identify what Trump describes as weaponization of the federal government against his supporters. The directive identifies the Justice Department, Federal Trade Commission, Securities and Exchange Commission, and the intelligence community. It requires a report to the president on the findings with recommended remedial actions.
So my mind goes to dark places. So like that, it's Trump giving the middle finger and saying, you know what, you wanted to do this to me, up yours.
I'm coming after
and
you.
I have more words in my head that I cannot say and I won't say because I'm a Christian. But you know how your mind goes? It's like he's saying, you know what?
Oh, yeah. It's middle fingers all
Now,
the way.
again, that's a bad way to make policy is revenge. That's not good. But I know why he's doing it. So
that's and let's be clear. People on the left are going to say, "Oh, he's just vindictive. It's just revenge." That's all. Yeah, maybe there's some vindictiveness in there, but the other part of it is he's trying to restore some semblance of justice by saying, "You guys went out of your way to politically persecute people. We're going to try and reel this back. We're going to punish you for using your authority, your positions of power to punish people, including me."
They abused their power. They abused the authority we'd given them. They abused their office for going after political opponents, and it's pretty true. Hey, we also, too, I covered yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, I think it was the day before, about preemptive pardons. How that's unconstitutional as well. You can only pardon people who have committed crimes against the United States. Fauci, Biden's family, some of the people he's pardoned, Liz Cheney, they never did anything against the, they were never prosecuted is what I'm saying.
But these are good, upstanding people, but we have to pardon them?
Right. Have you ever heard of that? Like, when's the last time you asked someone for, like, did you ever just walk up to your wife and go, "I'm sorry"? She's gonna be like, "For what?" "I don't know. I just wanted to preemptively say I'm sorry."
Yeah, just in case you hold
just in
something
case you
against
might
me.
say something against me in the future. She'd be like, "You're freaking weird."
What
right?
did you do?
Right. She's going to keep digging in. What did you do? That's exactly what's happening. What did he do then? Why did you need to preemptively pardon Fauci? And I do believe Congress should do something about this. I believe, and this is just my theory, I said it a couple days ago, if they don't go after Fauci and what happened, that whole team of people, even those who promoted a lot of the stuff with the vaccines, if they don't, that only proves one thing to me. Both sides of the government, Republican and Democrat, were involved in this. Yeah. This was something that was intended because nobody wants to be on the hook for it. It was a failed experiment. They could not get what they wanted because people got pissed. Mm-hmm. They stood up. So now people are awake. You can't fool everybody. So, yeah, that one's a weird one to me. And anyway, let's continue.
Direct the Attorney General to investigate U.S. government dealings with social media platforms during Biden's tenure and make recommendations for appropriate remedial actions in response to what Trump frames as censorship efforts.
That's a spin on the AP's part. I don't think it's Trump saying it. It's government. That's their spin. Yeah.
It's Trump going after government pressure on social media platforms to censor information,
which have come out in the Twitter leaks and
Twitter
the
files,
Twitter
and
files,
Facebook
also,
emails, and
all that. So that's not anything new. But now it's like, okay, it's time to go investigate this, and see what really happened.
Which I would argue is in his purview. He's part of the executive branch. He's over attorney generals. He can say, "Look, I think you guys should investigate this. You should figure out what's going on with this." Revoke the security clearances of 50 people Trump accuses of aiding Biden's 2020 campaign via their collective public statement about a laptop that belonged to Biden's son, Hunter Biden. The list includes former top intelligence officials James Clapper, Michael Hayden, Leon Panetta, along with Trump's one-time national security advisor, John Bolton.
Holy cow.
I approve.
Again, that is his cabinet. That's what he's doing. He kind of has that. He's got that authority.
Mm-hmm. And let's be real. That letter changed the election.
It did.
It absolutely changed the election, and those guys knew what they were doing. Absolutely knew what they were doing. I'm fine with it.
I have no right.
Last one, direct the Director of National Intelligence and CIA Director to submit a report within 90 days with recommendations for additional disciplinary action and how to prevent the intelligence community or anyone who works for or within it from inappropriately influencing domestic elections. I like it. I think it's good.
I think it's good too. I think if we can't run fair, free elections, we are no longer a republic. We're destined into oligarchy, if not worse. Socialism, to me, each form of government has its dangers, right? Socialism, communism, Marxism, oligarchies to me are really scary too. Because it checked with the wrong people, it's bad. So
you know what's interesting about that one too is there's obviously going to be accusation that Trump is trying to influence the election or whatever.
Of course.
Of course. So why would he write an EO like this if he wants to have his hand on controlling elections in the future, right? Or have Republican control over elections.
Right.
He wouldn't do this.
Right. What's the point?
Because this puts a spot, and guaranteed there are people in the intelligence community who are like, I'm not a big fan of Trump. This puts a spotlight to where those people can be like, look how you're trying to influence the elections, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would more argue, no, he actually wants it to be clean, free, fair, full of integrity.
And I think anybody should be behind it saying, dude, listen, no government entity should interfere with the election.
Right.
And if there was interference, we should make it public. And this is what your government's been doing. All you people who hate Trump, all of you people who hate Biden, your government has been influencing elections. Just so you know, because it's illegal and it's wrong. And that, again, takes away from the republic and the freedom of the American people. So, guys, take this with what you will. Do your own homework, do your own research. We always say that. Again, thank you for tuning into the podcast. We're getting some really cool responses. We are now on the upside of YouTube, which is great. We're getting some views up there. It's getting really fun. So subscribe if you're on YouTube. 97% of the people who watch our stuff on YouTube are not subscribers. What the flip are you waiting for? It costs you nothing to do that. However, you would look cooler in one of our shirts. So go to The Self-Evident Truth and get yourself a shirt.
Get yourself some
or
merch.
A hat. Or a nice sweatshirt. It's cold out there. Did you guys know that in Destin, they got 6.5 inches of snow in Florida?
I didn't know they got that.
Florida, 6.5 inches. It was like, you saw the beach, bro, it was like snow. It was like terrible.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, and they're up there. You imagine all them snowbirds.
Oh, my gosh.
I left Canada for this. Like, yeah, they're here. Suckers. I'm kidding. Okay, I'm totally playing. No, but we love you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will be here back Monday. And
All right.
bye.